Hey there, it's Rob Hatch. Welcome to How I Use That, the show where we talk to business owners about the unique ways that they use software to manage their business and their lives. My guest today is Dave Holloway, who is the best-selling author of Wonder Leads, which was also recently named a finalist for Business Book of the Year at the Business Book Awards. He's also the founder of Wonder Leads and the founder of the app that we're going to talk about today, Socialaser. So let me pull in Dave here. Dave, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Rob, thank you very much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure.
We just met a few days ago, so this is pretty cool to be jumping in on this.
Yeah, definitely.
And congrats on the award.
Thank you
really
very
cool.
much. Yeah, and same back at you, it has to be said as well. So
thank you.
Huddling around the finalists table by chance, weren't we?
Exactly. That's a whole other software that I'm going to talk about another time. Was that the networking software that we use?
Yes.
Already put it into play in our insider mastermind group yesterday as a kind of a pre-event networking. So it's really fantastic. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about your software. Now, I do want to say that usually when I have a guest on, it's not someone who's actually created the app. I look to business owners and entrepreneurs who are using an app in a very unique and specific way to accomplish or solve a problem. But the reason I wanted to talk to you was because while you are the founder of this, it came from a very different place. You were doing this work without the app and created an app to make it easier. So it was that process of lead generations. Tell us a little bit about first, Socialaser and what it is and Wonder Leads, and then let's walk me through how you got here.
Yeah, well, it is a longish story, which I will cut as short as possible for anybody watching. Now, I've been in business for 14 years, and I have run a marketing agency of all things. And despite the fact that I am running a marketing agency, the biggest challenge that I've always experienced was cold outreach. So outbound sales, I always knew exactly who I wanted to talk to and those types of people. And, having the sales conversations when they occurred was never a problem. I was always comfortable, in those conversations. But
right.
I always struggled to generate the opportunities to have those conversations in the first place. And over the years, I think I must have tried every thing that was going, from cold calling, direct mail, email marketing, events, networking, exhibitions, advertising, social media, PR, literally you can name it, and I've given it a shot. And they all in varying degrees ended up costing a lot in terms of either money or, more importantly for me these days, time invested with very little reward to show for it. So it was kind of almost a little bit of desperation, to be perfectly frank, to try and find a solution. Because sometimes, although you can do wonders with community building and social media and content marketing, you're still kind of at the mercy of the people who come to find you, stumble across your content. So sometimes you need to just be able to kind of press the accelerator a little bit and have some control over the sales conversations that are going on. And so I stumbled across some techniques which was using personalized video. And it started because I saw an example of a video brochure. And I don't know if you've ever seen one, Rob, but it's basically like a tablet computer embedded in a bit of cardboard, and it's still branded. And, but the reason why I had seen one before, but the reason this one stood out was I was with a colleague here in Leeds in the UK, and who runs another business. And he said, wait a minute, you've got to, I want to show you this. And he went out into the back room. He came back and he showed me the video. And I was like, wow, this is, pretty cool piece of kit. But he opened it and it was like the video mentioned Jonathan, who I was with at the time, by name.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, that is brilliant. It was just brilliant because it's just so personal, and the amount of effort that had gone in to creating that was like,
well, it's funny, right? Usually, the personalization is just the only bit of personalization you mentioned there was the name. And there's something really, there's a trigger that happens when we see our name or hear our name. And in fact, I mentioned before the show, I've been writing a weekly newsletter for 9 years now, and getting the first name right in that is one of the things that we focus on in the welcome email. When someone signs up, sometimes they'll put in their first and last name, and we double check, like, is that right? Is that what you want to be called? Maybe you want to be called something else, because we understand how it feels when I say, hi, Dave, in the newsletter, even though it might be going out to a lot of people. I'm writing to you and communicating to you, and the name, getting that right, I think, is important. So that's really cool that that was the thing that struck you more so than the technology.
Absolutely. And I think it was the technology in combination. And I think it was just that visible display of effort that had gone in to someone to create the video, and then, to package it, send it through. But it was clear that it obviously left a mark. That was the thing. Like the colleague I was with, my friend, he's the CEO of a large tech company. I thought, like, well, if it can get his attention,
right,
like, who else can it get? And so I went away and sort of, determined to try and do something with that idea. But then having got to, I sort of made some trials, and then realized that, well, these things are not cheap. They like, I'm just trying to do some quick, like, pounds to dollars, but they'd probably be looking at about $150 a unit, $150
right.
a serious investment to, like, send these out. So I started thinking, well, how on earth can I send this? How can I trial it? Because you got to, like, any new venture you approach, you've got to try and test and measure, haven't you? So
yes.
So I thought, I turned to looking at LinkedIn and sort of think, well, how can I deliver these in that sort of way digitally? Because it was just a video file at the end of the day. And, we looked at sort of hooking up kind of quite a bit of a mishmash of techniques, where we created some landing pages on our website. So it's in WordPress, and we created like a new sort of section, essentially, where I could kind of create these sort of little personalized landing pages with the URL was the person's name, and then when I sent, so I could send them out, it like had a personalized link as well, which felt like it was, it was going to get someone's attention. It's all about, again, those little details of personalization. So we started trialing these, with like the videos were filmed, and then we upload them to Vimeo, bring them into WordPress, and then we'd use sort of Google Analytics to kind of track if they'd been seen. That was the concept. I'd be able to know if anyone was watching them by checking the analytics. And then I had like this quite ridiculous Excel spreadsheet that started off just like someone's name and their LinkedIn profile, and then by the end it must have been about 30 columns long, and like all the like different data that I was collecting, from like when I connected with them down to when I sent out the intro, how long I might have left it until I gave them a little nudge to see if they'd seen it, what sort of responses I was getting. And it was like clear straight from as I started sending them out. I think I sent out like 5 test videos, and with the like I got responses from 4 out of the 5. Say like, but then one of them had like just complete luck, really, had got so impressed with it that he'd shared it like to his LinkedIn connections, which he had like 8,000 connections, it's just saying like, wow, this is an example of how to make a professional introduction. And it was just a freak coincidence that that happened to that person on that day. You know, there's a huge slice of luck there, because it gave me validation of like suddenly loads and loads more people seeing it when I never intended that to be the case, and going, I like it. You know, this is a really strong approach. You know, and it was sort of it gave
amazing,
a big shot in the arm.
So you would basically, I mean, honestly, from the day of seeing that, you know, the actual piece that your friend brought out and seeing how expensive it was, went from there to testing it out, testing out the idea in a more efficient or cost-effective, let's say, way, but still the idea was personalized videos to make an introduction, and connect with someone. You personalize the URL, but really just kind of cobbling together and thinking about what you would want to track. But let's fast forward now to look at, you know, what that has become in terms of Socialaser. Maybe you could just share how you used, you know, we got kind of one use case there, with you were sending these out, and 4 out of the 5, you know, responded, one big one. But talk to me about how you use that. You know, you mentioned you're a marketing agency. So now what does Socialaser do? And I'm going to bring that up. Add the stream there. There we go.
So what it was is that, you know, the way that I was previously doing it was quite labor intensive. I was having to manage like multiple different communication touch points. So I'd have to check like LinkedIn, obviously, because that's how I was delivering messages. And then I would have to film the videos, so I'd do editing in iMovie, but then I'd have to take them into something like Vimeo, or what I was using. Did check out YouTube, preferred Vimeo for this one. To upload the video and host it, and then I'd have to bring that back in to like create a new WordPress page where I would host the video, and I would also personalize like some of the content on there. So I'd sort of like do an introduction for people and use their name again on the landing page. So it was, you know, hyper personalized.
Yes.
And then I'd be like constantly sort of checking my Google Analytics every now and again, just to kind of see if someone had seen it, you know. So if their URL had been viewed, then because it was like one person being sent that link, I knew that as long as that URL had a view, I could tell that it had been seen. So I knew that it was getting through. So it was working, and then I'd record all the results down in the Excel spreadsheet, but it was very, very labor intensive. And I thought, well, there's real scope here to like help other people with it who have a similar need to me, you know, and not hate outbound sales really, and but still need to do it, and I need to make it effective. So started all like planning quite early on, like, well, what kind of software could we develop that might streamline this process and take pain points that we had. So, and this is what we've sort of come up with, which is Socialaser is the solution to kind of managing all of these different elements. And in a nutshell, it's a management and reporting and delivery tool for video introductions. So it allows you to create landing pages, which are like highly personalized landing pages, and also then to use like sharing templates for messages to streamline and when you're sharing personalized URLs with people. And then crucially, it tracks when you've had engagement with those landing pages. So you get like email notifications to say when it's been viewed and who by and how many clicks and how many plays, and whether someone's, you know, click through to a call to action to visit a website. So, and then all of that is kind of wrapped up by giving you your major stats that you're looking at when you're doing this type of activity, which is you want your view rate. So you need to know like how often are people watching these videos, because any approach like this is quite labor intensive in terms of takes time to film and record the video. So like the most important thing is not like how many videos can I produce, it's how can I encourage the maximum number of people to view those videos? And that's really what the Wonder Leads sort of process from the book is kind of outlines. It tells people how to maximize the chances of using this approach to, encourage as many views and therefore as many responses and leads as possible.
So walk me through, like, you said it earlier on, you've got a target, you know your target is really clear, size of the business and everything else, and you don't maybe have an introduction yet, or maybe a semi-warm lead or whatnot, but you're definitely wanting to create something. And I love this idea of kind of moving ahead to, that there's a point, and we use the term one number in our business. There's that point just before a sale where that if you can get there, and oftentimes it's across the table or it's a meeting or a phone call, right?
Yeah.
There's a point that you can get to, that if you get that to that point, you pretty much know, or you have high confidence that you'll convert that sale. But getting there is the hard part. And that's what's interesting to me about this, is sort of your shortcutting it's the wrong way. You're using personalization. I mean, you are shortcutting it, but using personalization to communicate, faster, to accelerate the process is what you said. To get to that faster, it's in that place where you could have that conversation and get their attention. So tell me, you've got the lead.
Yeah.
What's next?
So the first thing would be identifying who you want to work with. So I would make a connection on LinkedIn and there's an art to doing that in the right way with the right type of people. Lots of the people that I need to work with are board level executives, sort of C-suite, senior decision makers within a business. So they're often the hardest people to kind of get any response out,
right?
Because they're usually the ones shortest of time. So it's about building, like, getting them as a first degree connection. So once you've made that leap, you have a platform from which you can take the conversation a little further. And then these introductions are just sort of labeled as that. So it's literally sort of the next natural step from, say, like making that connection on social media to going, thank you, and like I very appreciate your connection, and this is what we do, and maybe we could help at some point. Never expecting a sale, never kind of pushing for like a meeting, right? Because buying windows in my world are years apart, they're not months apart. So the chances of me ever connecting with someone where they're in the middle of a buying window is like minuscule. And so it's all about that. So once we've found that connection, I would record the video. So I would edit it and shoot like the personalized video using a sort of a standard-ish script, but wherever possible, I will personalize it with as much detail as I can that's relevant to that person. Because
now you just, you identified something that's, I think, hard for a lot of people, the idea of recording a video and editing and everything else. But like, tell me why that's easier now, not just for you, but someone can, who's thinking about, you lost me at editing. Tell me more about that.
Well, the process that we advocate is to try and create the highest quality video that you can, because what you're trying to do is elevate the value of your business as much as possible, in that to try and create a wow moment when you deliver the video and someone sees it. So we advocate sort of using a DSLR camera, which is, you can pick up pretty cheap as long as it shoots HD video. And, we outline how you can do it as cost really on quite a low budget to get a premium effect to your videos. But in lockdown, obviously, and the COVID times, there's lots of constraints for people. So, myself, even, I've started using my iPhone a lot more, but with a really nifty bit of software called Camo, which turns it into a webcam, which I can hook up to my Mac. And then I have a lot more, you have the power of an iPhone camera, which is amazing, you know, for what it is.
Yeah.
But you can also fine tune like the lighting and exposure and frame and focus and zoom, and so it gives you, kind of takes an extra level. So you can still, like at the minute I'm using, you know, that with this recording, and so it's kind of got a lot of versatility to it as well. But yeah, I use really simple tools for editing. So it would be iMovie. So I would record a film, bring it in. Literally all that usually requires doing is a little bit of background noise reduction, you know, to make the average recording sound more professional. And then it's really just a question of cropping the footage to the right point. So we always start and end with a wave, which sounds like very cheesy and like you know, a sort of a bit of a kitsch thing to do, but you know, the really good reason is because it's all about making a hello. You know, you're making a personal, friendly introduction, and it's kind of in Western cultures anyway, it's a universally recognized symbol of like of wanting to greet someone. So because you're you know, you're sending a thumbnail along with the introduction, like Socialaser generates a thumbnail of the video and shares it when you send your LinkedIn message, so people see like the frame of like their name with their personalized link with you saying hello, and it's sort of, it all ties together to kind of be quite an enticing hook to bring someone to actually view it. And so yeah, so that's kind of
so bring me into the app a little bit, like, you know, so you've got the you're going to record the video, and you know what happens from, you know, in this case it was an intro video. You're not, you know, spamming them. You have the introduction, it's a warm lead, but you're sending an introduction video. And walk me through. I'm going to blow this up a little bit.
No problem. So within the app, we've so you land, this is the main intros dashboard. So every user, like everybody that you want to send an introduction to, has their own intro. So you create a unique intro for each person. So the first thing that you do once you've sort of recorded your videos is you go into the videos tab, and you would just upload your video. So you drag and drop, upload it, and it gets converted and ready to be used in the system. I'll save us some time by just using the ones that we've already got. And then you've got options where you can set the branding for the pages. So these are like intro page layouts. So this is how the actual front end of the of Socialaser looks. So, and probably the best way to give you an example of that is if I open up an example here. Hopefully it will follow. Yeah,
maybe not.
See if I can. Yeah, it's gonna.
That's all right. It's cool. These things happen, right? You know, we're trying to grab the tab that you opened up to share, and it gets it a little tricky.
Well, I could bring it back in here. Hang on, let me just see. It might let me in.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. So this is just an example of what's like the recipient will see for when you send them an introduction, and they click on it and they are taken to a page. And so like the key things here that sort of Socialaser are able to offer is the personalization within the URL. So that's quite an important hook to see that, like see your name written down in a URL is quite sort of a powerful motivator, you know, to see what's on the other side. And then it's kind of a gentle introduction with like signature contact details in case you're hoping people might want to get in touch. And then we've got like the video, which is can be played here, and we've got like a really simple sort of call to action. So within the video, you might sort of, I mean, we advocate using really strong case studies to sort of back up whatever it is you're saying. So within your kind of script that you're using for your video, you want to be referencing sort of high value results that you've delivered for other customers, preferably as closely related to the people that you're contacting as possible. Because again, it's all about that resonates so much more with them when you do that. And so we say, well, at the end, if you'd like to find out more, all you need to do is click the button just below the video that you're watching now. And then that takes them through to your website, where they would, continue the exploratory journey, if you like. So it's kind of a simple.
So that's the intro. Let's assume that they watched it, maybe they clicked through, but not much has happened. And beyond that, they watched it. Let's presume that they actually enjoyed it, but the engagement kind of beyond a few clicks sort of fell off, and you haven't heard much from them. What's the follow up with something like this? Yeah,
well, let's do an example here. So we might say, we were in preview mode there for that URL, but if I reload it without the preload fix, and I play that, and I might sort of click through to the case study, and then if we go back into the system, and I'll just reload this now, you'll see that we've got some alerts within the system that are telling us that some engagement has happened. So if we click here, so we'll see that, that it's been viewed. It's like system will tell us that it's been viewed and it's been played, and that like our call to action has been clicked. So it's an interest. So it kind of tells us that we've got some engagement from this person. And this is the example that we're seeing here. So we kind of got a running total on how many times it's been viewed, clicked, and played in this area of the app. And then you can you have statuses as well within the app. So like the Wonderly's process is based on quite a positive approach to dealing with people. Like I think one of the worst things that you can do, like for outbound sales, is hammer someone repeatedly trying to get a response, because that might work a tiny percentage of the time, but in all the other circumstances, all you're doing is just alienating the vast majority of people from ever wanting to do work. So the approach is that you send gently the introduction out, and then the follow-up is not even what we don't call it a follow-up, we call it a nudge. Like it's just a gentle sort of reminder to say, did you have any trouble viewing the video? Technology can always be a pain. Let me know if you had any trouble. And it's kind of a one sentence polite little message that has immense power, because from my own experience, it leads to 40 to 50% of the responses that are gained overall come from sending a nudge. So you do have to follow up.
Absolutely. I mean, in my world, when we would do a course launch, for example, we'd make an announcement to our email list, and we have a link that people click on, and I know and when someone has clicked on the link, or the system does. And so we have this phrase that we use to automate as human, because if they click the link and they don't end up buying, within about 35 minutes, an automated, very personal, simple, like to your point, a couple of sentences, email goes out that says, saw that you were checking this out, not sure if you had any questions, because you don't know when they're viewing it, they might have questions, may not know how to follow up with you. So do you have any questions about it? Maybe you got distracted, because that always happens. They start to look at a cart, they intend to buy, and then they get a text or a phone call and they get pulled away. So that sort of abandoned cart sequence that we're familiar with, it was really just, I saw you, I see you, Dave, and I know you did this. And I want to know that I'm here if you have any questions. So for some people, they get a little twitchy about it because they think you're actually watching them. But really, more often than not, to your point about increasing the sales, like the engagement that happens in that email, even if they don't buy right then, or ever, there's this ability to have this communication with them to say, oh yeah, I did see it. I checked it out. Looks great. Not for me at this time. I'm doing X, Y, Z, or it's out of my price range. So you can learn so much in those conversations. And that sounds like that's what you're doing here, is kind of that, I see it. I see this happened. Let me just check in.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it's sort of not intended to be a big brother approach at all. So it's, there isn't automation to kind of send out a reply when you get it, because I think that would sort of slightly fight against the methodology and the whole principle behind it. Because
well, you're talking about a different sale than buying a course. So I think it's a good distinction to make. But
it's very much about, it's just conversations. At the end of the day, like Rob, all we do, isn't it, is we engage in meaningful conversations with other people who need our help, and hopefully we offer value to people to help them overcome challenges. And I think this is really what the whole premise and what Socialaser helps to enable is just to kickstart those conversations on the right foot. A way to sort of manage a process that works for a small business. That's primarily what it's about. And also works for people who are more interested in using their time efficiently and effectively than they are in sort of just like hammering out volume to try and get a pitiful return. It's that's the difference here. So
and what I love too about this, I mean, and I hit this in the beginning, which was this came from you, kind of like, technology aside, you thought this idea of video introductions was really powerful. And you kind of mapped out and tested, would this even work? Not just as an app, but does this process work in converting sales or helping to facilitate that introduction and facilitate those conversations? And it sounds like there's sort of a resounding yes. And when I talk to people about trying out a new app, part of it is, think about how you want to use this. One, you said it's important to know who, to whom you're speaking. Who is this for? But what, that idea of, all right, so what happens next and what happens next? You clearly have a process that you outline in Wonderleads. At the same time, when that nudge happens, might be different for me than it is for you, or what I'm comfortable with, or what I want to have happen. There's a lot of control over when and how and what that looks like. It's not so formulaic. It's there to support you, but not. Yeah. But I feel like I get to guide it.
Yeah, and the system. I mean, if we click into like one of the intros here, so this is like an editing page within the app.
Okay.
And so you control all the details. We've got fields, name, contact company. Here, one of the cool things is that if you sign up as a new user, you get access to some default sort of personalized URLs that work really well. So you kind of, from -me.to and myintro.to and quickhello.to, all these ones are inbuilt into the system, so everybody gets access to those. So there's still powerful like ways when you tag on the person's name and company to the end, it still gets people's attention. But you can integrate with your company like web address as well by use of a subdomain, which is the portion just before the main domain name there. So in this example, it's hi.acmeworld.co.uk, and you would still have it the URL afterwards. But you can also integrate your own custom personalized domain. So if you wanted something like from-rob.to really like elevates it to the next level in terms of personalization of messaging, remote messages, and you can do that.
Wow.
So yeah, that's all things that are available within the system. But the ability to kind of, as you were saying, sort of customize your schedule Well, I'm a big fan of sort of advocating wait as long as you can for follow-ups. Like, I think when you're trying to like master or win at outbound sales, the real key is to like elevate yourself above everything everybody else is doing, because it's not working for everybody else.
Right.
There's too much noise. The spam filters are like way too heavy. People are really used to seeing a really quick, short, sharp funnel. So you sign up for something, you get someone's attention, and we get it on LinkedIn all the time. Someone's immediate, like, sends a connection request or an in-mail, and they're selling, they like sign up for that, blah, blah, blah. So sell up for all this stuff like now, and they can't get it out their brains fast enough, and
Right.
you just want to go, whoa, just take a step back here. But then 2 days later, they send you another follow-up saying, did you have a chance to send it? Another 2 days, it's like you feel straight away you've switched off. So my approach is, what's the worst that can happen if you leave it, say, 30 days to do a follow-up? Absolutely nothing, because that person is not going to be sat there crying that you haven't like bothered to to get back in touch with them. The worst that happens is that it takes a little bit longer to see the results. And so, by having that patience, if you're doing this process on a regular basis, so you build it into your weekly workflow, well, all you've got to wait is that first 30 days, 60 days, however long you decide to leave it. And then afterwards, it's just a steady stream, because your process has caught up. So it's just showing that patience in terms of how you structure your workflow is so important. And then it becomes much more, the communication becomes much more natural, and someone is probably more likely to take notice of your second communication when it comes through, significantly after the first, because they might actually think, oh, I wonder what they've got to say this time, or I forgot to get back to them about that video and feel awful, and here's my reply. And that has been my personal experience.
I was going to say, I bet that happens quite a bit, actually, that little nudge, however long down the road, because people do. That's what happens. You mentioned how noisy it is, and our inboxes are filled with stuff and LinkedIn messages, and but when they see something that they've really engaged with and it was personalized, they recognize that took some time. So now they are gonna feel a little guilty, and so that's kind of the power of the personalization, I think, is that you're creating this acknowledgement that, holy crap, someone went much further than I ever expected to shoot me a video. Now, let me just ask you real quick. So what are some of the results? Share some of the results. And then I want to just check in around, like, if there's anything else that I've sort of forgot to ask you about that you want to show me before we wrap up the day.
Yeah. So my results when I was doing it, like pre-Socialaser, and with a mishmash of technique, was sent out 120 introductions to board level executives, that's sort of C-suite, senior managers and business owners. And they were all in the UK manufacturing sector, which is a notoriously the sort of difficult sector to kind of cut through to the right type of people. And I managed to get a response, a view rate, of 55%. So that's 55% of all the videos that were sent were actually seen. Now, in total, the response rate was 44%. So that's in total. But if you do that as a percentage of ones that were actually viewed, then the response rate is over 80%. So
it's amazing.
When these are seen, like the vast majority of the time, they generate a response and a conversation has started. And not all of that is like, yeah, there's a sale, the reality is there, but you have made a big impression with those people. So, which is really what it's all about. Then the lead generation rate overall was 10.8%. So that's 1 in 10 of the videos were generating a genuine sales conversation where someone, and I term a warm lead as, where the person that you're contacting or that you could actually do business with is saying, let's take the conversation further. It might not be right now, but it's like,
Right.
in a couple of months, let's take it forward. We want to find out more. So that's the best, in my world that I could ever expect from a this type of approach, because the buying windows, as I said before, is so far apart for kind of branding services and things like that.
Sure.
So, so that's kind of the power. I mean, if you compare like the lead generation stats, for example, with the most, I've always struggled to say what is the closest comparison, but I'd say it's probably cold calling, like, because it's the direct where you're picking up a phone and you're actually going, proactively out to, I want to speak to you,
Right.
So. But there's evidence on like an article on Entrepreneur, and it's very difficult to get proper stats about cold calling. But there was an article by a chap called Gordon Treadgold who signed up for an experiment to do like 2,000 cold calls in 20 days. And he found on average it took 17 calls to get through to the right person. But then only 1 in 10 of those actually resulted in a meeting. So that's, a lead generation rate, of just 0.6% for doing cold calling. So 12 meetings from 2,000 calls. Well, this is the antithesis of that. It's sort of where you're going much lower numbers, far more precise, and you're being really strategic about like the results that you want. You're handpicking who you want to speak to. High probability of, if you do get their attention, they're going to want to know more because you're a relevant fit for them. And it's a very different way of working,
Well, and I think, as I mentioned to you before, I can see, even with warm leads, right? So this, with my newsletter, the list that I have for my weekly newsletter, I've been talking to some of these folks for years, right? They've been on the list. Some of them have expressed interest in various forms or another. If I had a product at a level that I was offering, to be able to take it that much closer, again, the whole with my coaching services, for example, the best opportunity to work with someone to figure out if it's going to work is to get on a phone call or be in front of them in some way, shape, or form. And this seems like a really, whether it's a cold lead or a warm lead, wherever you're starting, I still like this. I don't, it doesn't have to be, it feels like you can move some of those conversations forward a lot faster.
Absolutely. And I've used
it. It's all personalized. So.
Yeah. I've used exactly the same technique to kind of close a deal, so accompanying a video with a proposal, instead of just firing off a proposal with an email, and if you can't be there in person, to be able to just walk someone through your thinking and like what to look for and, what they would be most interested in and what pages to check and, just that care and attention. It's how you can make yourself more of a human in a very digital sort of, and make it less about a transaction and more about a conversation. And that's it can really help throughout the stage.
I think too, it makes me wonder. It's hard to know for sure, but given the last year, we've given a lot of permission over to those. To a video experience, right? It doesn't have to be an in-person thing. So the fact that you're using this and personalizing it does feel as personal as anything else that we would normally be able, or that we would be able to do in this environment. So I kind of like that this has created a space for this to happen even more so. I mean, beforehand it was amazing, but now we've got this. It seems perfectly normal that I would get a video maybe not as personalized, but that's really neat. So let's go. Let me pull back up your screen. Is there anything else that you want us to review real quick before we wrap up the show?
I think we're kind of there. I mean, the only thing that might be useful is just showing like the snapshot reporting functionality that you kind of get, which gives you an overview of your key stats that you're performing. So you get your lead generation rate. What's that from just viewed videos? Same with your response rate. And then it also gives you sort of like some of the stuff that I'm most interested in. It's like the difference that personalization makes. And you can see like your percentage breakdown of personalized messages. So that's where you've gone significantly off your sort of standard script that you would use when recording. And the difference that makes is like, I just can't emphasize it enough to people. I think the response rate is near 100% for me in my where from viewed videos, where I've gone significantly off-piste, if you like, with the personalization. So these are all stats that you can use to help keep you on track, and also to kind of reaffirm what works. I think a lot of marketing is feels like you're throwing mud against the wall all the time, and very difficult to track and measure, and get used to these very pitiful numbers of 3% for an email campaign. That's like it's super good going click-through rate, but the reality is it can be way better than that. There are means to be way better than that. And I think for small businesses, the smallest businesses, efficiency, the 3 E's, as I call it, like efficiency, effectiveness, and empathy. Those are the cornerstones of like making marketing work for you. And I think this approach really does sort of encompass all three.
That's fantastic. Thank you again so much for jumping on the show. I'm so excited that we met the other night, and
me too.
And I look forward to a lot more conversations. So I just want to say thanks. And if you are interested in learning more about Socialaser, go to wonderleads.com. You can also get Dave's best-selling book there, as well as learn more about the app. And there's a free level that I actually just signed up for that I've been noodling around with. So, get it now before he realizes that he shouldn't be giving it away. But Dave, thank you again so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Total pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Rob.
Take care.